Hey, Keith Hernandez here of Hernandez Sculpture Effects. Welcome back to another cast and chat. We're starting the video off in my little studio office. I do all my sculptures here. I've got a computer off to the right. That is where the magic happens. And all the collectibles in here that kind of serve as inspiration. It's just a great place to be creative in. And I thought a nice place to start the video. Today we're going to be casting the Sonar Cowl, one of my personal favorites in look and design of the Batman. And a big shout out to Peter. Peter has been a huge supporter of my art over the years. He custom commissioned to have this cowl made. It's like his fourth or fifth commission from him, and I cannot thank you enough. So thank you so much for supporting my artwork. And to all of you who supported this channel by liking and subscribing to the last cast and chat, thank you so much. We have a winner of the cowl that goes to Batman of Spring Hill. He will be taking home the Adams cowl. Thank you and everyone who helped grow the channel. We got to 456 subscribers, and I had a goal of 500, so I'd say that's a pretty good start. And we'll be giving this cowl away, so you have another chance. Just do the same thing. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you've subscribed, like this video, and comment down below, and you could have this cowl sitting on your desk at home. But without further ado, we've got a lot of work to do. Brand new mold, we're casting out of it for the first time, and we need to get to it. So let's stop and get casted. Alright guys, we are going to start with the cast. And just like with every cast and chat, I will tell you kind of the basic rundown of what I'm doing, but it's not a full tutorial. I have read the comments. I am definitely going to be working on creating a kind of a step-by-step on my casting process. So be on the lookout for that. I hope to have that out soon. But for this, we are going to be doing the similar formula as the last one, because it is a 24-inch, and that is 480 grams of part A and part B, broken up into 3 parts. Each one is 160 of A and B, so we have 3 batches ready. In each one, there are 4 grams of Kick It, which is a necessity for the urethane rubber. Otherwise, you're kind of playing with the mold. But we're going to dive into this. The color I made, I'm not sure if you can see it. You'll see it here in a minute, though, is, you know, it's gunmetal, metallic kind of gray. I'm just guessing, just eyeballing. It's the first time casting out of this, so generally speaking, there are opportunities for us to kind of learn the mold. We might have issues that we discover and have to work with, so we'll start with that. And then I'll go from there. But we'll start with the first batch and the second batch by pre-mixing, get those going and kicking off, and start our chat. Most people who know me probably know this. Batman Forever has, in my opinion, some of the best suits created for Batman. You know, it's kind of like the peak of the rubber suit that started in '89. You know, the transition from '89 to Returns was such a interesting jump, because it went from kind of a muscular structure to this more mechanical, and then it went back to it, and then it also has a kind of mechanical suit, the Sonar Cowl, Sonar suit. And so that transition is kind of like, I think, the ending point, because it has both. But beautiful suits, and in my opinion, you can't get any better aesthetically. But one of the things that I think are driven by the topic of Batman Forever is the nipples. You know, you can't get past that. And I think it's interesting, the kind of like the history and the story behind the decisions that were made for this nipple gate. And that is, originally, it was kind of like an aesthetic choice to kind of reminisce Greek and Roman armor. If you go and look up actual Greek and Roman armor, you will see that they actually had nipples. And that's kind of like the key gripe for anybody when it comes to those suits, is that, you know, it has nipples, and what can you do? They're subtle, and I'm not bothered by them. Obviously, if you know your suits and you know the differences very well, you'll know that in Batman and Robin, the nipples get even more pronounced. I think that was a Joel Schumacher request, and that is when you get into kind of like, well, it's a little awkward and not as purposeful as I think as it was for the Panther suit. But you know, when you look at that, you can't fault the entire suit for that. And I think in general, when you look at all these sculptures, they're so clean, they're so precise, and that's what you've got to be focusing on, not the kind of, you know, less desirable features. You know, Batman and Robin was a movie that was supposed to continue with Kilmer, and they were throwing in a lot of unexpected needs to change. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we had a change in the suit's sculpture. I bet if Kilmer wasn't going to not be in it, or if he was going to be in it, it probably would have been the same, and there would have been minor changes like the color and the emblem. But they had to re-sculpt that chest because Clooney is such a different size. You know, the fun fact is they originally went with the Panther cowl modified so it could fit with the cape clips, and it did not fit Clooney. They had to cut a zipper in the back, and I think for whatever reason they had to start production and were forced to film some scenes with the what's now dubbed the OnStar cowl, and they had to shoot just from the front. And I think it's just the museum. The museum is the only time that you see him wearing that OnStar cowl. And that, to me, was a much better looking cowl because it derives from the Panther, which is my favorite in all of Batman lore. But when it came to the Sonar suit, they did not redo or resculpt anything from it. Everything that is on that suit, the ice suit, that is different, is added on top of the existing suit. And so when they did put a zipper in the back of the cowl, they had to hide it with that piece that they put on top of it. And so if you ever see like auctions off of the screen suits, you'll see that piece kind of coming off because it was removable. And there's actually a scene, I can't remember if it's in the movie or if it's a cut scene, but there's a scene where, you know, I think it's in the movie, but Clooney is giving Alfred the antidote or the medicine or whatever it is that he needs to take, and he's actually just wearing a straight Sonar suit. It's not even the ice colors, it's just a gray suit. The Sonar has so much lineage into everything that's Batman related. When Christopher Nolan was preparing and casting and doing his auditions, the actors wore the Sonar suit. That's the go-to. The Sonar suit is a base inspiration for the Batman Begins suit. So it's a very well loved and respected suit. Maybe it's not for everybody, but for me, it's probably top 5. Panther leading it, and then the 89 and the BVS, and then the Sonar probably is in that order. But it's got its place in history. The dynamic and the change in the bat suits, it's quite an interesting kind of art. We had the rubber suits for so many years, Batman Returns, Forever, Robin Begins, and then the shift started to change into the Dark Knight suit, which was the last of rubber-based component, and then you had the Begins, or not the Begins, but the BVS, which shifted to the fabric, and dawn of the muscle suit is what came out of that. Being around in this hobby, in this community, muscle suits were very, very rare. It was not a concept that people really thought about in terms of building a bat suit until Batman and Superman came out. Then the massive draw was everywhere. Everyone wanted to do that and create those kinds of suits. And now we're starting to get a shift, and I don't like it. And that's these fabric suits where there is no more definition and no more structure for that comic-esque look that all these suits prior kind of built off of. And now it's just this loose, kind of baggy suit. Superman is the best example of the worst case in which a suit should not look. For a superhero, especially Superman. But the Pattinson, that suit, for whatever reason, it kind of makes sense to me. Because the one unique thing about Batman that really draws, I think, me and a lot of other people is how believable he can be. And, Matt Reeves really took that to another level and really worked towards making a much more believable to just sit there and go, yeah, this could happen, with a few far stretches. But that suit's it's a love or hate kind of suit, but it's very tactile, and I think that's fitting for that environment. I'm interested to see what James Gunn does. I say James Gunn because that guy is probably making every decision than anybody else in any of these other, cinematic universes. But I'm interested to see, I guess, what he does decide. I know it's going to be fabric-based. I know it's going to be, I call it the Guardian look, because it's all based off of Guardians of the Galaxy's final suits in that third movie, and it's just not a look. Captain America was pretty successful at getting a fabric suit going, and that works for that character because you have this connection to the military. It is very military-esque in the design and in that aspect, but Marvel has been pretty good at keeping with having that muscular undertone in their superhero suits. Black Panther's suit is very dynamic. I mean, if you look at the responsibility, Jose Fernandez and his team, they've been in the suit game forever, pun intended. Batman Forever being his best work, but he did the BVS. He is responsible for the Black Panther, and so many countless other suits. So when it comes to like Batman, if there's somebody who should be making that suit, it should be him. He has a beautiful eye and a beautiful aesthetic that I think really translates well for these heroes, these suits. But it is what it is in terms of the bat suits. But let's talk about Batman Forever, because this is kind of the theme of this video. The history behind Batman Forever is such a unique one, and the story about what could have been, what should have been, and how it ended up being is a wild one. And I think it transitions to the so many different things, one being the main focus, and that is WB's meddling into their movies. The story of Zack Snyder, the story of so many Batman-related movies, or superhero in general. WB has a knack for, I would say, messing things up. Batman Forever was supposed to be Tim Burton and Michael Keaton, and they tarnished all that because they wanted to make their advertisers happy. One of the things about 92 Batman was a 100% Tim Burton film. If you look at 89 and you look at 92 Returns Batman, they're vastly different movies. They feel different, they look different, because they are different. At that point, Burton was getting a lot more, prominent in the industry, and they gave him free reign, and you got a Tim Burton Batman and not an 89 Batman, which was a different beast. And they did not, they say it was a dark movie. I don't, maybe I'm naive. I was a child when the movie came out and I didn't see it, but they think it was too dark. McDonald's had a fit, and they weren't selling as many toys as they wanted to, because this is the 90s. And one thing in the 90s, toys rule. Everyone needs to be a toy. Let's sell toys. I mean, it's the 90s. They were selling toys for rated R movies. You had Terminator 2 toys. You had Rambo toys. You had Alien toys. You had all of these toys based on RoboCop. All rated R. And they were, I guess, enough to sell. But when it came to Batman, park your car, get out. It's too dark. And I think McDonald's played a big role, so they toned it down. They asked Tim Burton to tone it down. He was like, hell no, I'm out. And then Keaton was out, because I ain't doing a Batman if Tim Burton's not doing it. And so we ended up with Schumacher. And the funny thing is, and this is where the meddling starts to take place, is you have a Schumacher cut. Apparently, some people have seen it. I mean, it's supposedly a little bit darker, but the meddling with Warner Brothers was, cut these dark scenes out. I mean, I don't think it's a deep change like you get with Zack Snyder's Justice League, or even this supposed alternate cut of Suicide Squad. But they were there trying to change things, and they've been doing that since Superman. Superman 2 was filmed back to back with the first Superman, and I guess it wasn't so much Warner Brothers, but I guess it gave Warner Brothers this idea. We don't like it, we'll just take over. But the guys that produced the Superman films, they took over, kicked Donner out, and then they had someone else come in, and that's when you got all this kind of weird decisions being made throughout the movie, where Superman has these powers that don't make sense. I think there was some Star Wars inspired powers. Anyways, the point is that if you see the Donner cut, it's a vastly different movie, and there's nothing new that he went back and did like Zack Snyder. It's a completely different perspective and edit, and they took all the new scenes out that the other director added. So Warner Brothers needs to really look at their history and really think about, should we be doing this? Should we be making these changes? ultimately, Batman Forever did good, but then it got worse and campier and pretty much tanked the series. I think it really killed the appetite for Batman, and all because they wanted to keep in with creating toy sales, because that's what ruled the market back in the 90s. You know, all the different things that came out of it, we could have had a better movie. Billy D. Williams could have been Harvey Dent. I don't know what Tommy Lee Jones was thinking when he was Two-Face. It was too over the top. We had, at this time, you know, the animated series had been around, really established a tone and a feel that gave us this kind of pre-notion of what Two-Face should have been like. And then Tommy Lee Jones shows up and he's acting like a mix between the Joker and Jim Carrey's Riddler. I don't know if he was trying to compete with that energy. Jim Carrey's Riddler is obviously over the top. It's somewhat acceptable. Somewhat. But it goes to show that, and that's why Batman Begins was so successful and so on and so forth, is Batman is not a property that can handle silly. It's meant to be serious. It's meant to be tragic and unforgiving. And they forgot that and gave us something that was really too doled down or dumbed down that nobody had any interest in it. And that's a shame, because Batman Forever had some of the best suits ever. There are photos of the maquettes they did when Keaton was still attached, and you see the direction that those suits were going. You could see their version of what the Panther was leading towards, nippleless. The Sonar Cowl, what it was leaning towards. And they were really, really great foundations for what the next suits were going to be. I'm not disappointed. Like I said, the Panther suit is by far my ultimate favorite iteration of Batman. The Sonar suit, it's up there. I think what leans me a little bit away from the Sonar suit is that it's not, it doesn't have the muscular undertones that I think is important for Batman, because growing up a Batman fan, that was how he was depicted in the comics. So that's why, the 92 Batman Returns suit and the Sonar suits and the Begin suits, they're a little bit lower on my list of favorites because of those lack of muscular undertones. And that's why Pattinson, it's very difficult to like that suit and not like that suit, because it lacks those things. But because of the context in which that suit is put into, it really does work for the character. But we'll see what James Gunn does, and hopefully he does us right. I mean, the story's probably going to be good. He's really good with staying true to the characters in the heroes' story, but it's the look. Hollywood loves to put in their 2 cents and be different. Will it be good enough? We'll have to wait and see. I think he'll show up in Man of Tomorrow. Just seems like the perfect place to pluck him in just for a moment and then take him off from there. I bet after Man of Tomorrow, the next movie, that the big one anyways, that will come out will be his Batman. So we'll see. Until then, we have Pattinson's Batman to come, and that'll be a topic for another day. The Cowl here is getting ready to kick off, and we'll be ready to pull it and see how it turned out at the beginning. Like the last cast and chat, I will be giving this cowl away. All you have to do is make sure that you like this video, subscribe if you haven't, and if you really want to know when the next video comes up, there's a bell, click it. Until then, we're going to let this finish out its curing process, and we'll cast it next time. See you later.